Hi, it's Tiger Todd with Hero School, and yes, it's reading day again. I know it would have been so much easier just to publish a book list of the 24 to 30 most influential books in my professional career, but I thought what we'd do is read from the actual author, from the actual book, allow you to comment below and wherever this video is posted of maybe what you got out of the book when you read it, or even ask some questions from our viewpoints. Who knows? Today's book is going to be from Daniel Coyle. This book, The Talent Code, published in 2009, a more recent book, drew on some pretty incredible pieces of research that may have gone unnoticed before. Like, for example, one scientist in the 70s had gone through the Encyclopedia Britannica. Remember when they were all just books on a shelf? Okay, who remembers that? And he went through there, and anyone whose biography took up more than half a page, that person's importance, the scientist looked into that to determine birth order. And there was an amazing section where Daniel Coyle highlights the fact that more times than not, many more times than not, it was the youngest child which was the one who was the most successful. There was also a section on orphans ruling the world. 25 prime ministers in Europe alone, orphans. So today we're going to read from a chapter called Flipping the Trigger. Now, I haven't probably read this section in 10 years, so let's take a look at it, see if we can't pick up the writing style of Daniel Coyle, and I'll deliver it the best I can. All right? Okay. Being highly motivated, when you think about it, is a slightly irrational state. One foregoes comfort now in order to work towards some bigger prospective benefit later on. It's not as simple as saying, I want X. It's saying something far more complicated. I want X later, so I better do Y like crazy right now. We speak of motivation as if it's a rational assessment of cause and effect, but in fact it's closer to a bet, and a highly uncertain one at that. And in parentheses he writes, what if the future benefits don't come? This paradox is made plain in a scene in Mark Twain's Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer is whitewashing a fence under strict orders from his Aunt Polly. A neighborhood kid named Ben saunters past, teasing, informing Tom of his afternoon plans. Ben says, say, I'm going to go in a-swimmin', I am. Don't you wish you could? But of course, you'd druther work, wouldn't you? Of course you would. Tom contemplated the boy a bit and said, what do you call work? Why, ain't that work? Tom resumed his whitewashing and answered carelessly, well, maybe it is and maybe it ain't. All I know is it suits Tom Sawyer. Oh, come now, you don't mean to let on that you like it. The brush continued to move. Like it? Well, I don't see why I ought not to like it. Does a boy get a chance to whitewash a fence every day? That put the thing in a new light. Ben stopped nibbling his apple. Tom swept his brush daintily back and forth, stepped back to note the effect, added a touch here and there, criticized the effect again, Ben watching every move and getting more and more interested and more absorbed. Presently he said, say, Tom, let me whitewash a little. Tom considered, was about to consent, but he altered his mind. No, I reckon it wouldn't hardly do, Ben. You see, Aunt Polly's awful particular about this fence. Right here on the street, you know. But if it was the back fence, I wouldn't mind it, and she wouldn't. Yes, she's awful particular about this fence. It's got to be done very careful. I reckon there ain't one boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done. I want to shift right into sales and marketing right now. That was genius. All right. Mark Twain. Thank you, Samuel Clemens. All right, let's continue with Coyle's take. We all know what happens next. Ben is ignited, setting off a contagion of motivation that ends with Tom happily observing as the neighborhood kids barter and beg for the chance to whitewash the fence in his stead. Fiction though it may be, the passage suggests the sorts of signals that work best to ignite people. The previous section contained 3 examples of ignition: South Korean, Russian athletes, mile runners, and beginner musicians. In each case, their ignition was reactive. It may have felt like it originated within them, but in fact it did not. In each case, it was a response to a signal that arrived in the form of an image. The victory of an older countrywoman, the barrier-smashing accomplishment of a fellow runner, the unexpectedly captivating performance of a teacher. The question is, what do these signals have in common? The answer is, each has to do with identity and groups, and the links that form between them. Each signal is the motivational equivalent of a flashing red light. Those people over there are doing something terrifically worthwhile. Each signal, in short, is about future belonging. Future belonging is a primal cue, a simple, direct signal that activates our built-in motivational triggers, funneling our energy and attention toward a goal. The idea makes intuitive sense. After all, we've all felt motivated by the desire to connect ourselves to high-achieving groups. What's interesting, however, is just how powerful and unconscious those triggers can be. We're the most social creatures on the planet, says Dr. Jeff Cohen of the University of Colorado. Everything depends on collective effort and cooperation. When we get a cue that we ought to connect our identity with a group, it's like a hair trigger, like turning on a light switch. The ability to achieve is already there, but the energy put into that ability goes through the roof. Cohen is one of a growing group of psychologists who specialize in uncovering the unconscious mechanisms that quietly govern our choices, motivations, and goals. Officially, this area of study is called automaticity. But for our purposes, Cohen and his colleagues are like the garage mechanics of ignition, tracing the invisible connections between our motivations and the environmental signals that quietly activate them. One of the rudimentary truths that the automaticity experts like to point out is that our motivational wiring isn't exactly new. In fact, most of the motivational circuits in our brains go back millions of years and are located in the area of the mind called the reptilian brain. And you've heard others in their books talk about that lizard brain. Pursuing a goal, having motivation, all of that predates consciousness, says John Bargh, a psychologist at Yale University who pioneered automaticity studies in the mid-1980s. Our brains are always looking for a cue as to where to spend energy now. Now? We're swimming in an ocean of cues, constantly responding to them, but like fish in water, we just don't see it, he writes. I asked Bargh about a curious pattern I'd observed at the talent hotbeds. They tended to be junky, unattractive places. If the training grounds of all the talent hotbeds I visited were magically assembled into a single facility, a mega hotbed, as it were, that place would resemble a shanty town. Its buildings would be makeshift, corrugated-roofed affairs, its walls paint-balled, its fields weedy and uneven. So many hotbeds shared this disheveled ambience that I began to sense a link between the dented, beat-up state of the incubators and the sleek talent they produced, which, in Bargh's opinion, was precisely the case, and for a reason he readily explained. If we're in a nice, easy, pleasant environment, we naturally shut off effort, Bargh said. Why work? But if people get the signal that it's rough, they get motivated now. A nice, well-kept tennis academy gives them the luxury future right now. Of course, they'd be demotivated. They can't help it. The research of Bargh and his colleagues adds up to a theorem that might be dubbed the Scrooge principle, which goes as follows. Our unconscious mind is a stingy banker of energy reserves, keeping its wealth locked in a vault. Direct pleas to open the vault often don't work. Scrooge can't be fooled that easily. But when he's hit with the right combination of primal cues, when he's visited by a series of primal cue ghosts, you might say, the tumblers click, the vault of energy flies open, and suddenly it's Christmas Day. So this section from the Talent Code on primal cues in the section called Flipping the Trigger. Enjoyed this book immensely. More than that, it gave language to many of the tools I was using before I was decently read. I won't even say I'm yet well read. But a terrific book. more than just on this subject of motivation, but the speed of learning, the way to activate myelin in the brain in order to transmit thoughts much more quickly. Lots of things in this talent code book. See it? Ta-da! Whether it's a new character, a new place, a new thing, whatever it is. And now, this time that we're all going through, as rough as it is on some, it's still an opportunity. As if time stood still, as if a pause button was pushed on our spinning world for us to catch up. And anything we can do at a faster rate than the normal pace of this world, I say go with it. All right, that was today's reading. Tiger Todd for Hero School. Subscribe, show some comments or questions below, and I'll use the Heroes Incorporated tagline. We believe in heroes. We believe in you.